Now, welcome to The Bottom Line, a wrap of the business of the day. I'm Frances Hurd, and tonight we're talking about trade relations between South Africa and the United Kingdom. We're asking, will the Brexit fallout, we don't even know what's going to happen yet, will it help or harm our own companies in Southern Africa? First, a quick update on the intended divorce between Britain and the European Union that hasn't quite happened yet. So in 2017, you'll remember the UK invoked Article 50 of the EU treaty, notifying of its intention to withdraw from the bloc. The 2-year time period that the two sides had to agree on the terms of their future relationship came and went in March. Of course, extensions have been granted, the latest until the end of October. Well, the British Prime Minister Theresa May failed to negotiate a deal with the EU palatable to lawmakers, and she has stepped down. The race to be Britain's next Prime Minister is now between the former London Mayor and Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson and the Secretary of State, there you can see him, Jeremy Hunt. The frontrunner Johnson has said that he's not aiming for a no-deal Brexit, which could be messy and impact UK businesses themselves. But he also says it's right for the country to prepare for a no-deal outcome if it comes. So it remains to be seen if he could negotiate a better deal than the one that has been rejected by lawmakers thus far. Either way, Johnson is adamant the UK will leave on the 31st of October. So if and how and when the UK will leave the EU is still being debated, but in the meantime, South Africa has been trying to prepare. Let's look at how important trade between South Africa and the UK actually is. So the European Union as a whole, as a bloc, is South Africa's largest trading partner. On a country-by-country basis, you can see that China is right up there, by far our biggest trading partner. Germany is next important in terms of European partners, but the UK is second if we look at South Africa's biggest trading partner in the EU. It's second biggest, with total trade amounting to nearly 80 billion, excluding gold, in 2017. The former Trade Minister Rob Davies said earlier this year that SADC countries as a group, remember we're in our own trading bloc, we're engaging with the UK to ensure continuity of trade following Brexit. Exports to the UK include cars, wine, fruit and vegetables. So the UK, very important, and we're trying to avoid disruptions. Of course, things like tariffs suddenly coming up, or new standards when we try and send our goods to the UK. Let's discuss now. We're joined by the UK's Trade Commissioner for Africa, Emma Wade-Smith. Thank you for being with us in studio, Emma. We appreciate it. So, firstly, for people who don't know what the Trade Commissioner for Africa does, just tell us a bit about your role.
Sure. So it was created a couple of years ago on the back, actually, of the Brexit decision. So a way to really re-emphasise and reinvigorate the way that the UK trades and invests around the world. If I boil it all down, actually, what I'm here to do is increase the value of trade and investment between the African continent and the UK. It's as simple and as complicated as that.
And that's heartwarming for us because we are thinking, what happens to us post-Brexit? We'd like to be protected. Could you look after us? But you've got so many self-interests in the UK. Boris Johnson's on domestic issues, but Brexit, the timeline has come and gone. Is there really time to worry about, what will happen with trade with South Africa?
Well, the UK is a massive global trading partner, and so actually our relationships with economies all around the world really are absolutely vital to our economic well-being, as well as those of others. And as you've rightly pointed out, the trade relationship between the UK and South Africa is really important to both of us, and that figure, whether it's 9 billion, 10 billion, what I like about it is the fact that it's quite evenly balanced. So our latest figures talk about £9 billion. So what's that? It probably is just around sort of $10.5 billion over the last 4 quarters, and that's risen 3.8% over the last year, which probably doesn't sound like very much, but actually when you think about all the headwinds that the international trading regimes are facing, that's pretty good, actually. And when you look at the way that our two economies have experienced growth over the last 4 quarters, 3.8% is pretty good going.
And when we say an increase in trade, what does that mean? Goods coming in, or us exporting to the UK?
It's pretty evenly balanced, and as I say, that's something that I really like about this trading relationship, is it's not all heavily one way or another, and so you can split that sort of $10.5 billion pretty much down the line between UK exports to South Africa and South African exports to the UK. And equally, you can, there's sort of 50-50 split between goods and services, which I think tells the story of what our economies are all about.
Yeah. Given the fact that we don't know if there's going to be a deal or no deal, how would you look at this from South Africa's perspective? Is this something to fret about, or is there still this possible opportunity for us?
So I think it's all of that, and that is the complexity of Brexit. But I think at its heart, what we've been working really hard to do between the UK government and the South African government is ensure that we have continuity of the trading arrangements that support and enable that flow of goods and services between our two countries. And so South Africa is part of the Southern African Customs Union, along with Mozambique, and we have an economic partnership agreement between that bloc and the European Union. And what we've been doing over the last 2 years is working really hard to transition those existing arrangements so that as the UK leaves the EU, we have that continuity of tariffs and quotas and all of that stuff that sort of sets the framework for the trading relationship.
So Rob Davies was talking about that, saying at least that'll be in place for about a year. So what does it mean? Say there's a no-deal Brexit. The very next day, somebody who exports cars to the UK, are the terms and conditions around that pretty much the same? Is that the deal?
So if we are successful in transitioning and agreeing that transition from an EU partnership agreement to a UK SACU plus Mozambique partnership agreement, then the arrangements stay exactly as they are in terms of tariffs and quotas, etc. And that means that as the UK leaves the EU, with a deal or without a deal, we can have confidence in the continuity of those trading arrangements. But I should point out, we haven't quite got that transition arrangement over the line yet. Both sides were working very hard on that. But what I would say is it's really important that we get that in place and in good time and ratified, so that whenever the UK does leave the EU, with or without a deal, we have those trading arrangements in place.
So it's almost like a cushion. So as soon as anything happens, there's this deal that kicks into place with SADC and the UK. What are the sticking points? You're saying that that's not finalised yet.
Well, you know, these trade arrangements are really complicated, run to many hundreds of pages, so inevitably there are some issues. And of course, you know, as we are looking to transition those, people are asking questions about the content of that, and trying to look at how we can improve on those arrangements. For the UK, we're in the position we're in is that we are still a member of the European Union, and therefore we're not able to negotiate our trade policy at this stage. And so we can only transition those existing arrangements. We're not able to open that discussion up yet and look and see what a bright, brave new future might look like. So we're still discussing. You can only say
it'll be the same as if you're trading with the UK under EU terms, basically.
Exactly that, yes. So we're looking and talking about all sorts of things like rules of origin, which are incredibly complex and increasingly so in this international global trading system. And we're looking at quotas as well. So, you know, as the UK leaves the EU, what portion of those EU quotas gets pulled out of the EU bit and moved into a UK arrangement. But the discussions have been really very fruitful and very supportive, mutually supportive, actually, and we're very, very close. But my message would be that, you know, we can see what's happening in the UK. There's a lot of politics going on. It's not quite clear whether we will leave with or without a deal on the 31st of October. So it's really important that we go ahead and we get that transition agreed here with South Africa and the Southern African Customs Union.
The issue is complicated because there's a deal currently between SADC, so not South Africa and the EU, but SADC as a group and the EU, and I understand that there's favourable terms there. We're seen as a group as a favoured nation. What does that mean, and will we lose that status potentially once we're dealing with the UK on a one-on-one basis?
So, I mean, all of this really is about continuity, and we know that, you know, whether you're an individual thinking about whether you're going to travel to the UK on holiday, whether you're a business looking to export or invest in the UK, which many companies are continuing to do in force, by the way. But, you know, continuity is really important for us, and so at the moment we're really looking at like for like. What do we have currently as a member of the EU, and how do we ensure the continuity of that arrangement on the day that the UK leaves the European Union? What we'd like to get to, of course, is that moment as we've left the EU and we then have control of our trading policy for the first time in 40 plus years, that we can start those discussions again about how do we improve on what we've got, because the UK prides itself on being a global free trader, and we believe that the arrangements we've got have some room for improvement.
So government has been saying there's scope maybe for areas, for products where there could be more opportunities, maybe both ways. Where do you see those?
So from a South African perspective, you know, there's
more wine.
Well, you know, as a Brit, I would love that, and I know many of my friends back in the UK would love to have more choice of South African wine. But citrus fruit and, you know, sort of agricultural products and that sort of thing are often the areas that we talk about when we're thinking about sort of the amounts that we can share.
And I mean, citrus fruits, sometimes we've seen there's standards there. Could there be a situation suddenly where the UK has even more stringent standards? I mean, you have your own biodiversity issues, security issues. Suddenly, could it become harder for some of our agricultural products to get over?
Well, we think the European Union has very stringent standards already. And what we've said is, as we leave the EU, we will maintain those standards on food safety and that whole sort of range of regulations. A very complex area, actually, as you start to look into it. But we've said, again, we want to maintain those high standards. I don't see at the moment a strong lobby to press for more stringent standards. But as I say, I think we've already got some of the best in the world.
All right, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming in. That was the UK's Trade Commissioner for Africa, Emma Wade-Smith.